Hey, what's going on? Johnny K, the Cheap Card Collector here, and today we have a special video on sports cards 101. So we do this every now and then. The last one has been 2 years, so it's been a while. So this video is really talk about the sports card hobby, sort of how things are compared to 2 years ago and really before. A lot of people always ask me, hey, you know, I collected sports cards in the 80s and 90s. I want to get back into it. You know, what do I need to know? Where do I go? What's different? Well, this video is for you. And really for anyone who loves sports cards and wants to review the basics. So here we are. Let's get started. If you like what you see, like the channel, subscribe. We appreciate your support, and we love doing videos such as this. So happy that you're here. So key takeaways, let's jump right in. So the first thing I tell people is to check your old cards. They're probably worthless, which we'll get into, but that's where you start, right? If you got cards in your old house, your mom's attic, the basement, start there, right? Because that's your inventory. You might find a hidden gem. Most of them come probably from the junk wax era, if you're a late 80s, early 90s collector like I was. But start there, because maybe you have some cool stuff, and that always sort of gets you reinvigorated back into the hobby. Sports card era, so really they define sports card collecting in 5 different distinct eras. The first one is vintage, so anything old, pre-1980, going back all the way to the 50s, 40s, even the turn of the century. Those are considered vintage. So if you have some of those, great. Then maybe you're a little older, or you collect a card you inherited from your grandparents or parents back in the day. So the vintage is the old stuff. Mostly very valuable. Conditions are pretty worn out. So anything in good shape, even if it's a common card from the 50s or 60s, probably worth something. So modern vintage, this is the early 80s. People were starting to collect back then, but it wasn't really as popular. Defined as 1980-86. It's a junk wax for baseball. Most people are collecting baseball around the early 80s, so those are not as valuable as you'd think. But football and basketball were. Obviously, the 1986 Jordan rookie is still probably the most iconic card of all time. The baseball, there were some rookies like Ricky Henderson, 1980. Some earlier stuff like Tony Gwynn, Ryan Sandberg. And then football, 1984 Topps, the iconic set, Dan Marino, John Elway. In 86, Jerry Rice, Steve Young, etc. So there are some good cards from that period. Now, they are condition specific. So if you have one of those cards, but they're not centered, the corners are damaged, not worth a ton. But anything in perfect value is valuable. So, for example, the Jerry Rice graded as a 9, which I'll talk about grading companies later. It's around, I think, $200. But a 10, you know, perfect gem mint 10 Jerry Rice 86 Topps is from PSA. I think it was around 100,000. So, again, condition specific for the modern vintage. Junk wax. So this is when I collected as a kid. Probably when you collected, this is when sports cards were all the rage. Sports card shops were all over the place. So this era is called the junk wax era because they print in millions of cards, right? Because it's popular, people loved it. They're printing money. So millions of cards are out there per set, per player. Pyramids are not known, but that's what's speculated. So they're not worth much. You can go to any card store or card shop or card show. You'll see boxes of these still unopened, and they're worth like $1, $10 maybe. There are some exceptions. You see here the 89 Griffey, one of the probably most iconic cards of all time. I grew up dreaming about that card. The Jeter SP Foil, which is his rookie card, very hard to find good condition. Frank Thomas, a lot of error cards. There are some exceptions. For the most part, most of these cards are worthless, unless they're in perfect condition. Like perfect condition, but even that, you know, the values have come down. So if you have those, look through them, but chances are not worth that much. And that's the first thing I tell people when they say, oh, I had this card, it was a Jordan rookie card, it's $30 per Beckett magazine, which again, I'll talk about Beckett magazine, but you know, everyone had them, right? Everyone put them in the box, trying to save it for college and other things, but unfortunately they're mostly worthless. Now in 94, when I stopped collecting, funny enough, is now the modern era. So this is when people stopped collecting cards, they stopped printing them, but they're always cards, right? They're always cards in those years. And so these cards are worth a good amount of money because they're just not a lot of them, right? So the Kobe, LeBron rookies were in this time. Brady in 2000. Brady is interesting. He was such a 7th round pick. There are very few rookie cards of him. So the rookie cards that do exist are obviously pretty valuable. And then people like Mike Trout, Steph Curry. So they're definitely big time cards here in the modern era. So if you have those, you start, let's say you're a little younger, you start in the early 2000s, good for you. Your junk box is probably worth, has a chance to be worth a lot. And then finally we get to the ultra modern. That's where we are today. So right before the pandemic and during the pandemic, which we'll talk about more detail, Popularity spiked, print runs spiked. Not as bad as junk era, but a lot of high print runs, a lot of sets, not a lot of very very high supply. And so if you're collecting now, we're in the ultra mod era. We call it the junk slab era because slab is a term for a graded card. People are grading a ton of cards, which we'll get to. So people are speculating that all the junk wax cards lying around are worthless. I have some thoughts on that, but so that's the ultra modern. So it's important to know sort of the regions, just for background, or the time periods, what you have and what year each cards represent. All right, so market data. So back in the day, you probably remember you had a Beckett magazine. You bought it every month. You go to the back, it tells you how much your cards are. You all excited, oh, I have a $50 card, it's in the Beckett. People use Beckett as a value, right? Like everything else in the world, we have more data, right? We have eBay, thousands of cards bought and sold every day. We've got other platforms. So there's a market, right? So you could take a look at the 89 Griffey, for example, and see that a raw card, ungraded Griffey, today 20 of them sold for, I don't know, anywhere from $40, $80 based on condition. That's your value, right? It's only worth as much as someone's willing to pay for it. And so there are no Beckett magazines anymore. There are, but they're sort of just more for fun. But if you want value, you go to eBay, you go to cardladder.com, you go to 130point.com. You can look up transactions and see what the last one sold for. So true indicators of market, just like any other exchange. So that's really changed the game. It's made it a lot more accurate to determine value, for better or for worse. So as I mentioned, cards kind of really spiked during the pandemic, as you may or not know. You might have seen on the news. People were at home, had a lot of money, couldn't travel. So what did? They collected cards. They got back into it. So during the pandemic, cards went up a lot. And so this chart is a good example. This is a Luka Doncic Silver Prism rookie. Just to give you an idea, and this is one card, but you could really look at any card from that time. So this card in particular was just under $1,000 before the pandemic. Went all the way up to $2,500. So that's like 2.5x, 2 times X. And other cards went up more. As the pandemic slowed down, people that were in the hobby during the pandemic to make money got out. Things kind of settled. Now we're flat. So as you see, this is a good summary of what happened with the pandemic and where we are today. Big spike. So if you bought cards during the pandemic, you're probably holding on stuff that's half the value at least. But now's a good time, right? We're stabilized. People left in the hobby like myself are truly in the hobby. We're not here just to make a quick buck. So things will probably go up slightly like any other market. So that's sort of a summary of what happened with the pandemic. Very interesting. So the key players. So people ask me, well, does Topps still exist? What about Donruss or Fleer or Hoops? And the answer is yes. Most of them do exist. So the key companies are Panini. So Panini makes most of the cards for basketball and football. So Prism, Select, Optic. We'll get to that. Donruss. They have Donruss, the license to that. So they have the license to the NBA and the NFL. So what that means is they can print cards of the players, the team names, the logos, the official sort of cards of those leagues. Topps has baseball, and Upper Deck is hockey. So what that means is, Topps can do a football set, which they do, or Panini could do a baseball set, but there's no team name, there's no logos. It's just a generic photo of a player that says Los Angeles or Milwaukee or Houston. So they're not as valuable, of course, as the fully licensed cards, but they do print sort of across each other. So Topps is still Topps, and they primarily do baseball. Donruss and Optic, which is the glossy version of Donruss, is under Panini. I don't think there's any Fleer anymore. Hoops is still around under Panini. Leaf is still around, sort of independent of all of these. Leaf can sort of print everything, but again, no license, so no names, no logos, etc. So the key thing here is you see is Fanatics. So Fanatics recently acquired Topps, as well as the licenses to the 3 major sports, baseball, football, and basketball. So as of next year, or as soon as late this year, 2024, Fanatics is going to be printing the leagues. But that means since they have Topps, Topps Finest, Topps Chrome, all the top sets we loved as kids for basketball and football are coming back, right? So there hasn't been football or basketball Topps cards for years, and now they're coming back. So that's somewhat exciting. We all don't know what's going to happen with the industry. How's Fanatics going to do it? It's a lot of power for one company. We'll see what happens. But I am excited about the new brands, or the old brands coming back for the new players. Sets. So as I mentioned, Topps, Donruss, Fleer, Leaf, O-Pee-Chee up in Canada. That's pretty much it. Not today. So today, and this is just baseball, there are, and these are just the major releases, but these are the amount of sets for 2023. And there's many, many more. So in the past, Dan Marino rookie card, tops. That's it, right? One card. Now, let's say you want a Julio Rodriguez rookie card. Every set's got one. And then every set has parallels, multiple versions of that card, which we'll get to. So it's good in the sense that there's more brands, different types of products, different styles, more accessibility to the common collector, which is great. But value-wise, there's now thousands of different Julio Rodriguez rookie cards, whereas Dan Marino has one. So scarcity-wise, you really got to think about what is valuable. Just because you have a Julio Rodriguez or a Victor Wembanyama or a Mike Trout rookie card. Well, Mike Trout's a little different because back in the modern era, there was less sets and parallels. But for any ultra-modern people, there's hundreds of rookie cards. So keep that in mind, as in they're not that much valuable. And on the left, as I mentioned, you see some Panini products here. Because they don't have the baseball license, they issue cards without the team names and the logos. So they're still cool. They're a little cheaper, not as valuable, but a good way if you want to collect a card to get it a little cheaper than you could have. So what's a parallel? So as I mentioned, within every set, every card has a bunch of parallels. So the exact same card 50 times with different variations of that card. Same picture, just different colors, different rarity. So here's an example of Prism Football 2023. So every card in the set, excuse me, has a base card, like just a common base card, Patrick Mahomes card. Then there's all these parallels. So the exact same card, exact same picture, has black and red checker, black and white checker, blue, disco, green, green S, green wave, different sort of designs on the card, the exact same photo. So in this case, there's 50 different versions, or however many there are, of Patrick Mahomes. And then for each of those, you see those numbers say, slash 49, slash 70. Those are numbered cards. So for example, the first one, Pandora, numbered to 400. That means there's 400 serial numbered cards of the Pandora parallel. So if you get one, you're going to see 1 out of 400, 20 out of 400, 100 out of 400. So there's only 400 of them, which is great, right? It's a little more rare. So obviously the ones at the bottom are very special. That means there's only one made ever. So those are very valuable. However, keep that in mind, every set has parallels. So if there's 80 sets and each set has 40 different parallels, you're talking 320 different variations of that player. And so parallels are cool. They sort of add value. Some people don't like them because you sort of water down the product. But again, if you are a collector and let's say you love Patrick Mahomes and you really like the picture of him in 2023 Prism, you could collect all of these. And some people collect the different parallels. So it's a lot of fun. It's always fun chasing ones-of-ones. Any pack you buy could technically have a one-of-one, which is kind of cool. Grading. So I mentioned grading. So what is grading? So complete game changer in the industry. And it was around 2 years ago, but I'll just bring it up again. You can get a card graded. There are multiple companies that grade your cards, scale of 1 to 10. And based on the grade you get, could exponentially increase the value of the card, which makes sense, right? Millions of Kangaroo Fusion rookie cards are printed, 1989 Upper Deck. But again, a 10 means it's one of the few that's perfectly centered. Corners are good, edges are good, surface are good. Those are the 4 key criteria. So grading is something that adds value to cards. It sort of makes the market in terms of condition. You can buy graded cards anywhere, or you can submit them yourself for a fee and get them graded. So the major companies, so PSA is the main company. As you see on the right, I had a Luka Doncic example. They're worth the most, right? So if you want the most value for your card, you send to PSA, they'll grade it, and you'll get a score 1 to 10. PSA 10 is a gem mint. That means it's a perfect looking card. Very hard to get. You should never assume, no matter how good the card looks, you'll get a 10. A PSA 9 for this card, I think is like $90, just to give you an idea. And all the way down, it loses value. So PSA is the company for grading. The other ones are before, during the pandemic, PSA would cost like $100 to grade. Now it's around 20 to 50 depending on the speed of service you want. It's the same price as the others. So back in the day when PSA was so much more, they had a 1-2 year backlog. People were going to the other companies to get their cards back. Now the PSA is sort of the same price point as the other 3. In my view, there's no real point to grading the cards or with the other companies. Some people do it because they like the slab. BGS, SGC, CSG, other companies have a unique sort of looking slab and logo. Some people just don't like PSA. So it's up to you where you want to grade, but if you're going strictly for value, PSA is the way to go. If you care about the way it looks, you're just collecting, you want to slab your personal stuff, you can go to the other companies. There are other companies below, as you see in that last row. There's HGA, which kind of makes these cool slabs that have the same color as a card. Some people like that, some people don't. Tag utilizes AI. The companies up top, the main ones, they don't use AI. It's all human. based, so and very manual, and they'll never tell you why a card got the grade it did. So there's good and bad to that, right? Obviously, it's good if you get a 10, bad if you get a 4, and they won't tell you. So some people, what they do is they'll send a card to PSA, they'll get a grade they don't like, crack it, resubmit it, and get a different grade. Because maybe they had a bad grader the first time who had a bad day, and the second time, a nice grader. So it's very subjective. A lot of commentary about this in the hobby, but it is what it is. This is where we are. So graded cards really add value. So any cards you have sitting from, as I mentioned, from the junk wax era, if they're in perfect condition, could be worth a lot. But short of that, unless they're a 10, probably not going to be. So how to buy? Where do I start? So card shows are still around. They're more prevalent than they were 20 years ago. But there are a lot of card shows. You could look online, find someone in your local town. Card shops are still around. There's more than you think if you look around. So just like in the past, you can buy cards, singles, packs, supplies. Card shops typically charge a premium for everything. So if you go to eBay and look for a card, if you go to the card shop, you're going to pay more at a card shop, which is fine. People want the convenience. Just keep that in mind before you buy anything at a card shop. You can always get it online for cheaper most of the time. eBay is where I go. It's probably the main source to buy cards for me. Look at market data. So eBay, there's thousands of cards being put up every day. You can set alerts when a certain card you want gets up for sale. You can negotiate and make offers. So eBay has completely changed the game. Something we did have in the past, of course, for buying cards. Breaker. So you might have heard about breaking. So what breaking is, and it started during the pandemic, or really before the pandemic, but became popular. Someone will do a live stream on a platform, and they will have a box of cards or a case, which is full of boxes of cards. And they'll sell spots in that break, and whatever they pull on the stream, they'll mail it to you. So for example, they do, let's say someone's got a case of Topps Chrome basketball, or Topps Chrome baseball. And they'll sell off each of the 32 teams, or 30 teams. 32 teams, I don't remember. But they'll each sell teams, and based on what's in that set, maybe Julio Rodriguez rookies in that set. So you can buy the Carolina Mariners for $400. That means any Mariners card coming out of that break, you get. The Rays may not have any rookies, so that might be $20. So you buy that team, any Rays cards coming from the set, you'll get. So it's a way to buy only specific players. They do team pick your player, they do pick your division, they do random, where you just buy a break spot and they give you a team. It gives you a chance to access a set. Maybe you pay yourself. Maybe a hobby box is $1,000. You'd rather pay $50 for a specific team. So it's pretty fun. It's interactive. It's a chance to open a box from anywhere. They'll ship it to you. A lot of the breakers are established, so they're not gonna try to scam you. They typically will send the cards. It's fun, but I equate it to a slot machine, right? You're not gonna make money doing it because, and even opening product packs and boxes, you're not gonna make money. It's for fun. Like a slot machine, maybe you might pull something, maybe you'll hit something big, probably won't. So keep that in mind when you break. It's fun. There are places to do it. I have some places here on the screen, but definitely not money maker, but a lot of fun. Online auctions are something similar during a live stream. Someone will just show cards, and via Whatnot or Loop will have like a like a bid function. Excuse me. You can bid on cards. A lot of different people sell cards online via auction. Typically, they sell more than they're worth. People get caught in auctions, I guess. They don't have time to look up value. So you'll see $20 cards sell for 40 or 50. If you find an auction where that doesn't happen, I have a few where you actually can garnish for under comparable values. That's great. But the auctions are fun too. They're all over YouTube, Whatnot, Loop as well. And then finally, just social media in general. People on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram will do buy, sell, trade, forum posts or threads. They'll do claim sales where they show cards on their Facebook page. They have like Facebook groups, Instagram groups, TikTok, and you just buy them. They'll say, hey, $20, who wants this card? You can say, I'll take it. And typically these threads are thousands and thousands of followers, pretty reliable, so they're good. But social media, probably the best place to buy because people just want to avoid the fees from eBay. They just want to get rid of their stuff. So check social media. Just search for sports card buy sell on all those places. You'll find a lot. So I'd highly recommend that avenue. And then finally, just to top it off, social media influencers. So there are people that have YouTube channels much more popular than mine. Thousands of people that break product, talk about hobby news, go to card shows and do live streams. Just a lot of people out there. So if you did want to learn more, check out. There's Sports Card Investor. There's Mojo Breaks. There's Mama Breaks. There's all kinds of different people on YouTube and TikTok that talk about the hobby. So if you want to get your news and stuff. Okay, so where do I start? You ready to start? You want to get back into card collecting. So first, set a plan. So collecting and investing, what are you going to do, right? Collecting is buy cards, you create a collection. Don't really care about value. You just want the card. You collect it. Investing is a little different. You buy a card, you think it's going to go up in value. You buy it now just like a stock or something else. You hope it goes up. So what's your plan? Are you one or the other? Are you both? I'm both. I like to invest and buy things that are cheaper and sell for a profit if I think there's a value to fund my personal collection of certain players and teams. So regardless, there's no wrong answer. It's your collection. You collect what you want, but have a plan. And stick to a budget, right? Because there's probably so many cards you want. You know, I know there's a ton of cards out there I want, but you have to have a budget, right? Because otherwise you could go down a rabbit hole. It's addicting. So set a budget, whatever works for you, and stick to that budget. Your research, so we talked about the Beckett magazine was really our only source. Now we've got all these resources on the internet that can look at values, that can look at trends. You can do analysis, you can do arbitrage, you can look at cards where PSA 9s are undervalued or PSA 10s are overvalued. You can compare players. A lot of tools online. 130 Points is a good website for to look at sales from all sources aside from eBay, or many of them. eBay, of course, then Card Ladder. Card Ladder is another website as well. There's a bunch of apps too. Player performance doesn't equal value. So this is one thing that I hear a lot is, oh, someone won the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes won the Super Bowl. His cards go up in value. Not necessarily. You have to understand people speculate, and a lot of players that are popular are priced as if they've won 10 Super Bowls. So sometimes people win a Super Bowl and the card goes down even, or goes up like a couple percent for a week and comes back down. So just remember, sometimes it can happen. Like, for example, Cooper Rush. Some of you remember he came in as a third-string quarterback. I think he won a game or two for the Cowboys. His rookie card was 60 cents. His Prism base was 60 cents. After that win, I think the first week he won a game, it went to $60, which is, you know, crazy. Now it's backed up to like $1, I think, so, or down. So there are situations like that, but by and large, the star players, people already love them. They're already priced to be Hall of Famers, which is something you could think about when you're trying to value cards. So player performance usually doesn't equal value. The key players, so certain positions and types of players sell and some don't. That's just the way it is. So quarterbacks obviously are big time. Non-quarterbacks, even running backs and receivers, not as much. They don't come anywhere near the quarterback values. Part of it because their careers don't last as long. Part of it is they're just not as integral to the team's success or popular. But card values of non-quarterbacks are pretty low. And we get to like defensive players and non-skill position players, it's even cheaper. So if you like that kind of stuff, you want to collect you know, safeties or DBs or linebacker cards, by all means, pretty affordable. In basketball, wings, guards, you know, Steph Curry, LeBron, and Anthony Edwards are all very popular. Big men don't sell. You know, Jokic and Embiid and Giannis, of course, are valuable, but not as much as their counterparts. So big men are, you know, sort of typically like Shaq. Shaq was during Junk Wax era, but big men don't really sell as much or not as valuable. And then baseball, you know, the home run hitters, the Otanis, the speed guys like Ali De La Cruz, those guys are popular, obviously, J-Rod. But pitchers, not popular. And especially now, pitchers don't last as long. You know, aside from this Kershaw, Scherzer, Verlander group, I don't even know who the next Hall of Fame pitcher would be. They don't last. But pitchers don't sell. Or they're not as valuable as power hitters. So just keep that in mind. I mean, you can use that to your advantage if you want to collect stuff for cheaper. Collect your favorite pitcher or your favorite center or your favorite receiver. That's something to think about. Timing the market. So it's important to know when you're buying cards, right? So if you're watching the NBA playoffs and you start thinking about basketball cards, everyone else is too. So prices are up. The second the finals are over and we're into, so I guess we'd be in a baseball and football's coming up, basketball cards go down, right? So time the market. If people are going right, go left. If football or baseball are top of mind to everyone, then don't buy them. You should sell. Football is a little interesting because it's so popular. The season happens, then you got the draft, then you've got the training camp, and then summer's a ramp up. Football, there's very few windows of opportunity. It's always up. So, but the other sports, definitely, it's seasonal. So think about when you're buying and when you're selling. And sports cycles, I already went into that. Hall of Fame announcements is one for baseball players especially. If a player is going to make a Hall of Fame when they get announced, card values spike up for that week or two. So be proactive. If you know a player is going to get in now 4 or 5 years down the road, you're okay to hold it. Buy the rookie cards now and get ready to sell. Fees. So this is something no one talks about and something I underestimated coming to the hobby. When you sell cards on eBay or anywhere else, there's fees, right? eBay charges 13% roughly on when you sell a card. Plus you got to ship. Maybe you want to pay insurance, materials, taxes. Consult your accountant, but if you sell over a certain amount on any of these platforms, you're going to get taxed. You're going to get 1099. You have to plan for that. So lots of fees that involve with sports cards. Just keep that in mind. If you're investing and trying to make a profit, you've got to overcome all those fees. So you're sort of like down in the hole from the beginning. And most importantly, have fun, right? How you collect sports cards, how you invest in sports cards, it's personal. It's your fandom, it's your teams, it's who you think is going to be good. Every collection is different. That's the beauty of it, right? No one could tell you you're collecting wrong, or you shouldn't collect that or this or whatever. It's you, whatever you want to collect, and that's what makes it, sports cards fun. So finally, what happens in the next 12 months when we do this video again next year? So I believe a few cards will go up in value, right? Because if you think about cards people like now, there's always going to be the new player, the new thing, unless you're at all-time great. The people who had that card have it, and they're going to go down after that because no one else wants it. That's my view. Some people will disagree. Some people think, oh, Joe Burrow's going to go up forever as long as he is on this track. Maybe, maybe not. I collect stuff that I like for my collection, and I don't care if it ever goes up in value. The stuff that I buy, I try to invest. I try to flip those pretty short term. That's just me. Some people disagree with that. The GOATs. Now the GOATs, people like Brady, Mahomes is entering that territory. LeBron, Steph Curry, I don't know, Trout, Ohtani. Well, Ohtani's a little young. But any player who's going to be the Hall of Fame is a GOAT that people now 20 years are going to care about. Not to say they always go up, but I think the chances of them retaining value are higher, right? Kind of like how we think about Mantle and Dr. J, people we never saw play, or I never saw play, but are all-time greats. We still want them because we heard about them. We see clips. We know they're all-time greats. So GOATs, I don't think you can go wrong collecting GOATs. And for those of you who don't know, GOATs stands for greatest of all time. It's a term, 5 years old, maybe. Something is only as valuable as someone's willing to pay for it. Remember this. When you buy something, there's no Beckett. You use market data. But if someone, or the world suddenly doesn't want a card, it's worth 0, which is fine. Like anything else. Just keep that in mind. If you have something, it's only worth what someone's willing to pay for it to you. And then my prediction, so to sum it up, I think cards will go up 5 to 10%. I think go steady growth. The people in the hobby are here to stay. The flippers are gone. So it's a good time to be in a somewhat stable, in my view, a stable market. It will grow a bit. Fanatics taking over is going to, I think, add energy to the market. I think having Topps products of football and basketball is going to be great. I can't wait for Finest basketball to come back. I missed the refractors from the 92-93 Finest set, for example. So I think that's going to add a spike to popularity, I hope. And I mentioned, I think the GOATs, if you go a year from now, will no worse be even. But a lot of non-GOATs are coming down because we're a year removed from that. Now, people like Wembanyama, J-Rod, if they continue, Bobby Witt Jr., Anthony Edwards, those will go up, of course. But keep in mind, there's hundreds and thousands of rookie cards of them now, so you have to have the right ones. So they're not all going to go up. So that's a video. I hope you enjoyed it. I had fun doing it. We'll see where we are in a year. Leave a comment below. Did I forget anything? Anything you savvy collectors think is important that a new person should know? And if you're a new person, good luck. Have fun in the hobby, and I'll see you in a year to talk about this and see where things go. But anyway, I hope you have a great day and take care.